Dobro jutro svima, ja se zovem Metju Koničnik. Ja sam glavni dopisnik za politiku za Evropu. Ovdje imamo vrlo interesantnu panel diskusiju koju smo za vas planirali danas u ovom periodu. Ja ću prvo da predstavim naše goste. Većinu njih vi već znate. Sa desne strane sa nama je gospodin Hašim Tači. Pored njega gospodin Milo Đukanović.
Montenegro, from Serbia, we have Aleksandar Vučić, and on the far left, the only female on the panel today, unfortunately, we have Angelina Eichhorst, who's the Deputy Director for Europe and Asia with the European Union's External Action Service. So I think we are going to be fairly pressed for time. You do have headsets for translation. You also have the opportunity to ask Slido questions. We'll also be taking some questions from the audience, but I think we would like to just jump into the discussion. There's been a lot happening between Serbia and Kosovo of late, in particular around this question of whether there will be some kind of a land swap between Kosovo and Serbia to resolve these long-standing issues between the two countries. So I thought maybe we would start with you, Mr. Vučić, on this question. It seemed to have died at Berlin. That was the impression that many people had in Berlin at the end of that summit. Is it dead? And if not,
first of all, thank you for having us here, and wanted to say, if you allow me, that wherever we go and whenever we have this kind of panels, the only issue is whether it's going to be a division of Kosovo, either division of Kosovo, either land swap or whatever you call it.
border correction, I think it's name.
And no one's asking us whether we're going to reach a settlement, whether we're going to reach an arrangement that will fix the relationship between Serbs and Albanians, and whether we're going to do something for ourselves, which means that it's more important what we do for some other people and for some other nations. Question, or it's okay. That Germans, Americans, Russians and all the others should be interested in that issue, but it's the issue of the biggest significance for us. We couldn't do it, we didn't do, and the situation is not a very best one, and if you ask me about possible perspectives, I'm very much pessimistic, which is well known, but it doesn't mean that I'm not going, and all of us are not going to do our best to keep the peace, stability and tranquility within the region, and at the same time trying to find a possible solution. Our problem was that even before we started delivering any kind of motions, any kind of proposals, we were condemned by almost an entire international community. Everybody wanted to see a sort of solution. They were prepared to, and no one was asking us. For Mr. Tači, entire Kosovo belongs to Kosovo Albanians or to Kosovar people, or that's an independent state. According to the Serbian constitution, entire Kosovo belongs to Serbia. And the world is split, absolutely split. Half of the world have already recognized Kosovo's independence, half of the world haven't recognized so far, and there is no further intention of doing so. And it means that we need to find a solution. If the political situation today is that bad that we cannot do it, some other people, some more responsible people will have to do it in the future. I have no doubt. And I hope that there would be some more courageous people, not only in Belgrade or Pristina, but also in the world, to accept compromising solutions, not solutions that they would be in favor of. And that's it. And I think that's the most important message. We need to find that solution, and it has to be a solution in which both sides
nešto malo popuste. Ne može biti da se kaže vi Srbi sad morate da priznate kosovsku nezavisnost. To se neće desiti, to tako ne funkcioniše. Moramo praviti ustupke. To je nešto što treba da rješavamo na drugačiji način i meni je drago što sam ovdje sa ovim ljudima, sa Anđelinom, sa Milom i sa gospodinom Tačijem. Nisam rekao Milo zato što ne poštujem gospodina Đukanovića, već zato što je Milo nama bliži. Zato sam pomenuo samo prvo njegovo ime, odnosno ime, a ne prezime. Jako mi je drago da pozdravim Metjuja jer je on radio sa nama i to naporno na tome da postignemo briselski sporazum. To se desilo prije 6 godina. Hvala vam mnogo, izvinjam se što sam oduzeo vaše vrijeme. Hvala vam i treba da pomenem da će neki govornici govoriti na njihovom jeziku. Imate slušalice, vjerujem da je kanal za albanski 1 i 2. Gospodine Tači, da vas pitam. Gospodin Vučić je rekao da mora da bude kompromisa. Ja sam mu rekao da govori na engleskom, a ne na albanskom. Govorite vi koji god jezik hoćete i koji vam odgovara, nije problem. Ono što ja želim da pitam jeste sljedeće. Gospodin Vučić je rekao da ima mnogo podjela, čak i u vašim zemljama i u vašoj zemlji, gospodine Tači, su podijeljena mišljenja.
How are you going to break this impasse? How do you see the path forward? You have this meeting scheduled for Paris early next month. What needs to happen in the coming weeks for there to be real progress here?
Thank you very much for this opportunity to be here for the first time in this forum and speaking on behalf of Kosovo. Of course, it's a pleasure to be here with Angelina, with Mr. Vučić, with Milo. I would like also to thank Baroness Ashton for her contribution in reaching an agreement in 2013 in Brussels between Kosovo and Serbia. What I would like to stress immediately is that we are into a marathon process of dialogue between Kosovo and Serbia. In reality, this process is now in crisis, which comes from unnecessary conditions in this dialogue process, which brings an opportunity for a final agreement between the state of Kosovo and Serbia. What is really important and encouraging is that in Kosovo, more than 70% of the citizens want to have dialogue and to reach a final agreement between Kosovo and Serbia. Of course, there are divergent opinions, just like in Serbia, but the objective is the same, reaching, or the possibility of reaching an agreement, a comprehensive agreement between Kosovo and Serbia that will close all open issues between Kosovo and Serbia, an agreement which would be a final one, legally binding, internationally legally binding, that will preserve and further cultivate multi-ethnic character and reality of our societies, of our countries. Of course, no borders along ethnic lines. and that will be concluded with mutual recognition. I know that a possibility of reaching just such an agreement will bring more peace and stability in the whole of Western Balkans, will open a safe way for, even for Bosnia and Herzegovina, for a safe European perspective. At the same time, for my country, this agreement would also bring recognition by 5 EU member states that have not recognized Kosovo yet, among others Slovakia as well, and would open a safe way for Kosovo to become NATO and EU, but also of the United Nations. But to reach this agreement, of course, we require even bigger unity between United States, Germany, France, Italy, Great Britain, and Italy, and coordination between them, as we've seen in the past, coordination between EU institutions and the United States of America. In Berlin, we could have had more progress. I hope that in days and weeks that remain to prepare for the Paris meeting will be decisive for a positive turn in this process and for an agreement for which we have worked very hard. I believe that this agreement can be reached within this year, 2019. I said at the beginning that there can be no dialogue if we condition the process, which is now Serbia doing. But also institutions of Kosovo should not aspire to put obstacles. The tariffs were a result of aggressive behavior of Serbia, I could say, especially obstacles on membership of Kosovo in UNESCO and Interpol. Therefore, I believe that in coming weeks we will create a more positive environment to overcome these obstacles that we have in front of us, to continue the dialogue, and the Paris summit can be a real opportunity to continue the dialogue with concrete steps towards finalization in a very near future, in coming months, for an agreement between Kosovo and Serbia. The objective is greater than the obstacles that we face, which are nothing more than daily politics.
This is the real stumbling block in Belgrade's view to pushing this process forward.
It's not in Belgrade. I wanted to say a few words, and I think that everybody will understand that. As I told you at the beginning, the territory of Kosovo, from Hashim Tačić's point of view, and from, let's say, Albanian population in Kosovo, belongs to Kosovo people and it's a Kosovo independent state. According to our constitution, Kosovo territory belongs to Serbia entirely. And he said that they had to impose tariffs against Serbia because of our aggressive behavior. And then he explained what that aggressive behavior was. And it was all about that we were doing our job. And our job was to fight against their membership within Interpol and UNESCO, because we don't recognize and we don't see Kosovo as an independent state, which is very normal. We did nothing against them aggressively. We did nothing to put in jeopardy Kosovo Albanian people. We did absolutely nothing to harm themselves in any way. The only issue is that we don't agree with them on the status of Kosovo. Full stop. That was Serbia's aggressive behavior. And I'm very glad that I heard that as a confirmation in a way from Hashim Thaçi today. And what happened after that? They imposed tariffs against Serbia of 100%. And I still remember Hashim Thaçi was against that first night, second night after that, saying to me, okay, we'll remove it very soon. Now it's 7 months and we lost 300 million euros so far. We lost our market, and it's absolutely against CEFTA agreement that Kosovo signed together with Belgrade and with all the others from the Western Balkans in 2006. And let me just explain something. In 2008, they proclaimed their independence, 2 years after they signed CEFTA agreement. Even in 2008 and 2009, Serbia didn't want to break trade relationship with Pristina, and we didn't impose any kind of tariffs, any kind of sanctions against Pristina. We did nothing at all. And they were doing these tariff issues 13 years after that, just because they felt embarrassed, because they thought that Serbia would have recognized or supported their independence, which has never been the case, and we have never ever discussed that in that form.
Right, but I mean, assuming, coming back to my question, if Kosovo does agree, and I'll let you respond in a moment, Mr. Thaçi, but if Kosovo does agree to drop the tariffs, how long would it take to restart these talks and to really come to a comprehensive
We are ready
solution?
to start talking immediately. We are ready.
And how
to
long
start.
would it take to get an agreement once you restart them?
I don't know. Who can tell you that?
Well, you could. You're the
I
main
can.
negotiator.
I cannot. I can tell you that we are ready to start negotiating immediately, which I was saying to my public thousands of times. The problem is that when you come to Belgrade, you see that we are in a way lowering the expectations of our people, saying what is happening in Kosovo, that we'll have to do a lot of concessions, which is not the case in Pristina at all. They say to their people, it's just a matter of time when Serbia will recognize us, and that's it.
Well,
Which
let's
is,
let
once again,
Mr. Thaçi
not
respond to
going
that,
to happen
but
that way.
and just
Yes.
another question connected to it. Isn't this really the core of the problem, that you end up mired in these details? It turns into a he said, she said, and you're unable to get to the larger picture because you're talking about what happened in 2006 instead of talking about what needs to happen in 2019.
They broke that what
Okay,
happened even in 2006.
Anyway, we are late, and I wouldn't like to go back in the past. But with the 2013 agreement that we together signed in Brussels, it says that Serbia will not be an obstacle for Kosovo for membership in international organizations. And of course, the actions in UNESCO and then in Interpol were not European in their spirit. Regarding the tariff again, I know that Vučić doesn't really care. I know that he lost a few million euros, but actually politically he is happy because he has gained. Nevertheless, I hope that we will have a more creative engagement in coming days and in coming weeks, I hope, and that the dialogue will restart. Otherwise, conditioning in this process is only a justification not to continue the dialogue. I know that also in Serbia want this process to move ahead for the sake of their European perspective, but I also know that this crisis in the dialogue is a price that both Kosovo and Serbia pay, and perhaps also for the whole region.
And that was something that I refused, and Kathy can still remember here. And that's a huge difference, UNESCO and EU path. And it has nothing in common with each other. And just to say one more word, speaking about these tariffs, you know, I'm not that big politician as all the others here are. They always have this wider picture, you know, US, Germany, France, European Union. No.
Russia.
Russia, whatever you call it. I'm interested in those millions that belong to Serbian people. And that's why I'm very keen on to earn that money that our people have deserved, and that's it. Just leave those tariffs and we'll carry on with any kind of negotiations you want.
Mr. Đukanović, I'd like to come to you on this question. You obviously have a front row seat to all of this. You know the actors very well. Your country also has a very important strategic interest in seeing a resolution to this. How do you see the way forward? What would you tell the European Union to do here? What needs to happen? It seems, as I said before, that people are really mired in the nitty-gritty here. They're talking about what happened years ago, the Brussels agreements and all these things, which are no doubt very important, but it seems to be impeding substantive progress on this. What are you telling the EU to do here? And what are you telling Mr. Thaci and Mr. Vučić?
Thank you, first of all, for this opportunity to be a guest with my dear friends, President Vučić and President Thaci and Angelina. And thank you for confirming in this way that you recognize the regional and broader dimension of this problem and make it different from the dimension that would be just a situation where two countries have certain bilateral relations unsolved. Because this is an issue that actually is much beyond the interests of Serbia and Kosovo only. I can confirm that as a neighbor with good intentions, as somebody who has been involved in regional politics for 30 years. I do know very well the historical dimension of this problem, and I do know how burdening this is, not only for Serbia and Kosovo, but for the entire region. This history of the relations between Serbia and Kosovo and Serbs and Albanians is burdening the region. That's why I think, and I dare say, regardless of the inflation and the abuse of this word, I dare say that it is of historical importance, and it is a historical contribution of both Mr. Thaci and Mr. Vučić that they have decided to start a dialogue about this. I respect that much more than we could conclude from their dialogue today or the interpretations of those situations that we can hear in the last couple of months. So, President Vučić and President Thaci said what are the perceptions in the public in both of these countries about this. And both of them said that this issue cannot be solved unilaterally. This is a bilateral issue, and it has to be solved by compromise, by respecting the interests of both sides, both parties. But before that, it is very important that we understand that this question and issue has to be solved in this time now, and that it has to be dealt with from the starting points that respect the reality and all the things that have happened in the meantime. Maybe Mr. Vučić will not imply this, and I don't expect him to, but the very fact that he is at the table shows that he is willing to discuss the long-term solution between Serbia and Kosovo. If he didn't want to be at that table, he would keep repeating that Kosovo is a part of Serbia because that is defined in the constitution. And I'm telling you this as somebody who has been informed about this problem and knows the details of this problem. And I remember what was happening in 2007 and 2008. Many theorists in the international law said that at that time the solution was not in line with international law. But I think that life has shown us that you have to respect not only international law, but also certain circumstances that stem from the time of former Yugoslavia, and that continued to be in place after Serbia and Montenegro remained in one country, and particularly after they split. And in the period after Mr. Vučić came to power. And all these things are living today. So these are the circumstances that have to lead you to be sober in all of this, to have a very vigilant attitude and not to repeat things from the past. So I think that now we are in a quite critical moment. This issue can be discussed in line with the expectations of the domestic publics in Kosovo and in Serbia. But this is the dead end. This is how we cannot reach the solution. We do have experience from the 90s in the territory of former Yugoslavia. That's how the presidents of former Yugoslav republics discussed. They would meet and they would send messages to their domestic audience, the public in their countries, and that led to the war. So we have the experience, and we have to treat this question as a bilateral agreement, but also the question that is important for regional stability and for Europe. And I really hope that Mr. Vučić and Mr. Tači will continue the dialogue as they started it. And it seems to me that it is the most important thing today to continue the dialogue, to be back at the table, and we discussed this in Berlin, and I hope they will continue discussing this and continue the dialogue in Paris. I hope that it would be possible to overcome the problems that actually put the presidents off the table. And I think that there are solutions that can be reached. We don't have to find a solution for every single consequence of the activities that happened in the meantime. I think we could put a moratorium and suspend certain things, certain solutions for a certain period, and then use that time to reach final solution that would make the obstacles pointless. And I think that it is important that Europe recognizes its huge responsibility in this question. This is par excellence security issue for Europe. And Europe is here with full rights.
I'd also like to take a couple of audience questions, so if you have questions, prepare them now, and I'll come to you in a moment.
Okay.
As Mr. Đukanović just said, Ms. Eichhorst, this process is now at a dead end. This dialogue was supposed to improve the situation. It seems to have escalated things. Where has the EU gone wrong here? How has the EU, which is supposed to be functioning in this mediator role, bungled this process to such a degree that we have this paralysis now?
Thank you, Matthew, and good afternoon to all. I'm really happy to be in this conversation. This question you pose now, the way you put it, I don't think this is what President Đukanović was actually saying, that we have come to a dead end, but perhaps yes. I don't see it like this at all. I think the very fact that both presidents are here on the podium with you and that this conversation continues shows that there is not only the effort and the courage, as President Đukanović did say, the courage to negotiate, because it's far more difficult to negotiate yourself through very, very important issues. For some people, these are details, but I know for the two parties, these are crucial issues that have been negotiated and still need to be negotiated. And I want to just frame that back again, also related to your first question, because the framing is very important. Here are two parties who want to resolve all outstanding issues, and they want to come to a final agreement, a comprehensive agreement, resolving all the issues. That is not just about what is between the two parties, but this also has an enormous potential resonating effect on the region as a whole, and therefore I am glad that we have the President of Montenegro here. It is important all the leaders carry, and they see also this important. I saw that very clearly in Berlin, where all the leaders were around the table. They see the importance for what the possible effect could be of having a final agreement between Belgrade and Pristina. And then there is the whole European Union framework. We are discussing today, yesterday, tomorrow, the strategic importance of enlargement as a whole, of consolidation, unification, integration of the European Union, and that I can say as an EU official. I'm not talking about the different positions of different member states. I say as European Union as a whole, this is of crucial importance for us. So we will continue, we are not a mediator, we are a facilitator, and that really means, first and foremost, this dialogue is held by the two parties.
But
and
if
they are the ones who define. They are the ones who define where they feel their landing zone will be, where they feel they have a win-win, and for me it's a win-win-win-win-win-win because it's just for all the elements I mentioned. And this is really for them.
Absolutely, and I think one of those many wins you mentioned would be accession to the European Union. And if that is not officially on the table, which it is not at the moment, what leverage does the EU really have in this question?
The European perspective has been confirmed by all 28 European
Well, the perspective is there, but it's not official yet that they're on their way into
But
the
we are
EU.
working towards this. We are working towards this.
I'd like to go to the audience for a question. I think Lady Ashton has a question, somebody who's been working towards EU accession and other questions surrounding the region for some time. Lady Ashton?
Thank you. Can I just say to the presidents of Serbia and Kosovo that it was one of the greatest privileges of my life to work with you, not to help you, but to help the people that you represent. And for anyone who doesn't know, these two presidents, who were then not presidents, behaved in a statesmanlike way that was quite extraordinary. And I pay enormous tribute to you and to the teams that worked with you, because you did something that was considered impossible to do. So it sort of breaks my heart when I listen to where we've got to in terms of the argument. Because we always knew after the first agreement that the second and third and fourth would be more difficult. The first was bad enough, but the rest was going to be hard to do. And I have complete and utter faith that you, with the people that serve with you in your governments, are the answer to this problem. I suspect for President Đukanović, his frustration is partly the knowledge that you can do it, and you can do it, and you have to do it. So my question is this. In this room, there are people who want you to succeed. Angelina above everyone. How do we help you? What are the things that now would make a difference? Because it's not just about whether member states open accession talks, etc., etc. It's about practical ways in which we can help you build the confidence in the people you represent that you can do it, and give you the space to have the conversations that will get you there, that frankly, I absolutely know that you can do.
Thank you. I would like to take a couple of questions. We're running out of time, so I'll have to collect them. If we have a microphone here, I think the gentleman Christian Verschütz from the ORF Austrian television.
Thank you very much. I'm the Balkan correspondent of the Austrian television. I would like to ask a question the other way around. If you look at the implementation of the Brussels agreement and a whole agreement on normalization of the relationship between Kosovo and Serbia, where are you standing? I mean, we have this flag questions like the question of customs and the Serbs community in Kosovo, but what was reached so far? I mean, you meet each other also when you have no cameras, when you are not only talking about other issues. Where are we standing in this overall agreement and the kind of reconciliation between the two peoples?
Thank you very much. I would like to take another question. We'll just collect them. Jonathan Isle from Rusi here in the second row. Just briefly, Jonathan, if you would.
Yes, indeed, very briefly. Jonathan Isle from Rusi. My question is to the President of Serbia, I think, primarily. And you said that you don't want to go into grand politics this afternoon, but let me ask you about Russia and the latest visit of President Putin to Serbia. How do you see the role of Russia in the region? Do you think it is a useful sort of contributor to regional stability? And do you think it will enhance your integration in Europe?
Okay, thank you. And a last question to Milan Nic in the third row. back there from the German Council on Foreign Relations.
Thank you, Matt. Not easy to be a moderator here. I have a question about the High Rep of the EU and what EU can change as the baton will be passed from Federica Mogherini to the next High Representative. What would President of Serbia and Kosovo give as a one lesson learned or advice to the next High Rep to do differently? Personally, I think that the whole dialogue after Cathy Ashton passed the baton to Federica Mogherini was neglected. Maybe a question to Angelina Igors would be how many people actually in your unit deal with the dialogue? And if I may, to President Thaci, there is a claim that you wish to have a failure in Paris because you want to go to snap elections. And actually it's not about you, but about your Prime Minister Haradinaj, who is so popular because of the tariffs, that he cannot give up the tariffs before the snap elections. Therefore, the Paris will be failure, and the problem is in domestic politics of Kosovo. What do you have to say on that?
Okay, thank you very much. I think we're going to take an answer maybe from one person for each question because we are running out of time. What was achieved so far? Mr. Thaci, do you want to take that question? Yes. What has actually been achieved in these long-running talks, both the
2013 agreement 2013 agreement had extraordinary effect on our relations. There was integration, territorial but also societal, of the Serb community in Kosovo, in the institutions and the society of Kosovo, in northern part of Kosovo, but in the whole territory of Kosovo. We have integration in the judiciary, police, freedom of movement of people and goods, multi-ethnic police and custom officers along the border between Kosovo and Serbia, and removing of the barricades that were in the northern part of Kosovo. There are no riots, there are no inter-ethnic problems. For the first time we had elections, general and local, where Serbian community participated. I would like to express my appreciation for President Vučić, who visited them and convinced them to participate in the electoral process that was organized according to the laws of Kosovo. Of course, on the other hand, there are other things that remain to be implemented further on both sides. Kosovo has to implement the agreement on association to establish it according to Kosovo Constitution and courts and the verdict of the Kosovo Constitutional Court. It is very important that we always had the will to make this happen. Unfortunately, the Srpska Lista, Serbian politicians in Kosovo, has not allowed people to become part of the process and write the status of the association, the statute of the association. On the Serbian side, they need to work much more on the IBM, on the energy agreement and other agreements that are important. Regarding developments in Kosovo, I said more than 70% of the citizens want dialogue and an agreement because they all want to move faster towards NATO and the EU. They care more about this than the daily politics. Kosovo leadership wants dialogue, and this is why we have established state delegation for the dialogue in the Kosovo Parliament, and we have full unity on this, functional unity on dialogue. The citizens of Kosovo want dialogue because they want that an agreement between Kosovo and Serbia will strengthen the state integration and economic development, foreign investments in Kosovo, better well-being and better life. The way we have remained isolated without visa liberalization by EU, it's a situation that seeks urgent solution, not a solution that goes through Belgrade, but a solution within EU institutions, building good neighborly relations, and this is why I hope and I work to reach this objective. There are a lot of skeptics and critics, but the justice is on our side.
Of Russia, Putin, it's always the elephant or the bear in the room when it comes to the region. you heard the question, what role is Russia playing in all of this?
No, it's not. It's always a question for me and for Serbia, because we are suspect of, and for something that I don't get it, to tell you the truth, we have a good relationship with Russia. That's it. And we will have a very good relationship with Russia. And we are on EU path, which I always emphasize when I meet Vladimir Putin, which many of your European leaders forget when they see him. And just wanted to tell you that I have one story for everybody.
Quick story, please.
And that's it. Serbia is an independent country on its EU path that will preserve good relationship with Russia. I wanted to go back to Cathy Ashton's words and to the question of Christian Vershets. You see, everything that Hashim Thaçi was mentioning, it was all about everything that Serbs and Serbia did. We fulfilled all our obligations. I have Brussels agreement here. 100% fulfilled from Serbian side. 100%. And there was only one obligation from Kosovo, let's say, or Pristina side, to form Serb community, to form Serb association. So far, it didn't happen. It's only 6 years that we signed that agreement. And I'm saying this just for all the others that would like to know who acted in a reliable and responsible way. And I don't play any kind of blame games, because I'm ready to carry on our dialogue, our talks with Hashim, with whomever they want, because it is very crucial for us, as Cathy said, reaching an agreement. And I don't want to be and to present the country which would always be a sort of suspect of international community, and a country that will ruin a sort of peace, and everybody else would be an angels and saints, and Serbs always devils, you know, which is not true at all, and I'm fed up with this. And we delivered on everything, and there is no one in this room that can say, including Hashim, including anybody else, that there is something that we didn't fulfill so far. But the situation in the field, it's very difficult. It's getting more and more complicated.
Okay.
I just hope that even today's discussion will help us out to maintain peace and to keep us working much harder in the future in attempting to reach a solution of our problems.
Mr. Thaçi, I think I have to
Yes.
obligated to let you respond to that briefly.
Very short.
For the sake of truth, Serbia did not implement the agreement on the energy, agreement on IBM, and has prevented opening the bridge in Mitrovica to bring the city together and the people of the city together. Regarding the association of the Serb majority municipalities, Pristina is partly responsible. Why? Because we've established the managing team, which according to the agreement was established to draft the statute of the association. The makeup would be representative of the Kosovo Serb community in Kosovo. The statute would be drafted in consultations with Serbia. It has failed intentionally to finalize, to conclude its job. We cannot force anybody to do their job, to do their obligations that come out of this agreement. So the representatives of the Kosovo Serbs in Kosovo must take responsibility for the process. For the present, they are boycotting it, and we cannot impose anything on them.
Mr. Thaçi,
You are on the
just
next
said-
panel as well, so you can react on the next
No,
panel.
no, I need to react here. Mr. Thaçi has just said that we didn't provide into deeds something on IBM, something on international integrated water management, and that we didn't provide into deeds energy agreement and some other agreements, and bridge Mitrovica bridge. There is nothing about it in this Brussels agreement. Not a single word. There is one word. It's item 13. Discussions on energy and telecoms will be intensified. by the two sides. This is the only place where it's mentioned. IBM, Mitrovica Bridge are not mentioned in this Brussels arrangement. I wanted to tell you something, speaking about Serb community.
Last sentence.
He said that 2 days ago that he is not going to accept Serb association, although he signed it.
Right.
And he changed his mind. He signed it, and now he changed his mind. That's his public statement.
Okay, I think we have to leave it there. Thank you very much. Last word maybe from Ms.
We will
Eichhorst
respect
on...
in accordance with the Constitution of Kosovo, laws of Kosovo, and with the decision of Constitutional Court of Kosovo.
Ms. Eichhorst, last comment from you on the way forward here. What have you learned, if anything, over the last several years of what appear to have been fairly fruitless negotiations on this front? And then we do have to go to the next panel.
Nothing
Final word.
fruitless in any dialogue. To the contrary, I think it was very good, and we will continue to keep High Representative Mogherini has this as her priority. It will continue to be, I hope, also for the next High Representative, and it shows why that is important. I do believe, together, as Cassie mentioned, and many friends in the audience, that it is possible. It is possible to reach an agreement. Talks need to resume again, and that's the difficult part of the work. The negotiations need to start. Thanks.
Indeed. Thank you very much.
And it's not Mogherini's fault.
Exactly.
It's our fault.
A couple of the presidents will be staying. A couple of the panelists will be leaving for the next panel, which will also be focused on the Balkans. We'll need a couple of minutes for that, but I would like to bring out Valerie Hopkins, the Southeast Asia correspondent for the Financial Times, who will moderate the next panel. And a round of applause for the presidents and Ms. Eichhorst. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
angličtina. Ty to počúvaj.
Teraz počujem vás.
Akože angličtina by to mala byť, hej?
Vypočujete sa?
With the Slovak Innovation Slido, which is here with us, so you can feel free to vote. We'll show the results sometime in the middle when you expect Serbia and Montenegro to join the EU. I'd like to ask the presidents this question as well, but yes, and also we will be quite tight for time.
Today, we need a clear policy of incentives for the Western Balkans to go through the door, which
To počúvaj.
With the Slovak Innovation Slido, which is here with us, so you can feel free to vote. We'll show the results sometime in the middle when you expect Serbia and Montenegro to join the EU. I'd like to ask the presidents this question as well, but yes, and also we will be quite tight for time, so please do submit some questions via Slido. You will be also welcome to upvote other people's questions, so they will appear in a hierarchy of which questions are preferred. So you just need to go to slido.com and put in hashtag Globsec 2019 and we'll be away. So I will remind anyone that's just joined us that there is translation. Channel 1 will be in English, Channel 2 will be Serbian and Albanian. And for those of you, we will also take questions from the audience. I think there was a good amount of brevity. Questions are short interrogative statements that end with a question mark. I'll just like to remind you about that. So with that, well, maybe we can start with President Đukanović, who didn't get to speak as much as President Vučić in the previous panel. First, maybe I'd ask you to answer the question that we've put up in the poll. And I'd also like to ask you about a recent interview, or several recent interviews you've done, where you've been saying that Moscow, through its politics, and Beijing, through its loans, are trying to prevent the NATO and EU expansion in the Balkans, meaning that the region needs to be the zone of the EU's responsibility and its strategic interest. And you said that unless the EU realizes that its own future is in jeopardy. Yet, in Montenegro, a Chinese loan to build part of a highway from the port of Bar to Belgrade has sent your country's debt soaring, and it's forced the government to raise taxes, partially freeze public sector wages, and end benefit to mothers, which resulted in some protests. And your courts recently sentenced 2 Russian nationals for plotting a coup against you. So is there really a plan B for Montenegro besides the EU?
There is no plan B. Montenegro has paved its path of European Euro-Atlantic integration. We have become members of NATO, and we are much advanced in comparison to other aspiring countries when it comes to the path towards European Union. All of these things that you said are true. I warned clearly that the Balkans should be or has to be the zone of primary responsibility of Euro and Euro-Atlantic community, because we are geographically part of Europe and because we are a part of Euro-Atlantic system of values. I don't think anybody else should be convinced into that. Now everybody is aware of that. And I said that there are new players in the geopolitical scene and that we have to open our eyes and accept that the first stage of the geopolitical infrastructure has been finished, and it happened when the Berlin Wall collapsed. And now we have the end of the second stage where we had one superforce, and now we are starting the third stage. And if we do not open our eyes wide, we will be very surprised, unpleasantly. Russia, China, and the others are seeking their place and their position in the Balkans. And how much of that they will get depends on how much European Union and NATO will give them. And that's why I would like to invite European Union and NATO to do their job in our region. Stop repeating only that the door is open. Because if we wanted to accept that kind of invitation, we would have already been in. But we don't go to the doors usually from our region, but we go with our heads through the wall, and we pay very high price. We lag behind Europe in terms of the living standard. Today, we need a clear policy of incentives for the Western Balkans to go through the door which is open. And the second question, it is true that we took the loan to build the highway. I could give you more details, but I don't have enough time. But we didn't have any room to choose any other offer, because the offer that we got from the Chinese partners was so much more favorable, we couldn't do anything else. But that is a part of what I described earlier. Why weren't we offered such solutions, such a bid from European Investment Bank or EBRD? Why didn't we get such favorable conditions from them? Why did we get it from Chinese partners? Because China is taking the space, taking the room that Europe leaves empty. And the third thing, when it comes to public debt, we are still below 70%. It is above 60%. Defined in the Maastricht Agreement, but since it is below 70% of the GDP, it means that it is below of the public debt of 2/3 of the countries from European Union. So we shouldn't be emphasizing this for the European Union. And it is true that recently we have the first instant judgment in the court proceedings related to the attempted violent coup in Montenegro in October 2016. The idea was to stop our progress towards NATO membership. Some people whose IDs show that they are members of certain state structures in Russia were involved, and we did not make any judgment about whether Russia as the state is directly involved or not, because we do not have clear evidence for the court proceedings, and we don't need that. We have evidence, clear evidence that these people with those IDs participated in that plot, and it's logical that they are convicted.
Continue a bit in the same vein. I was paging through the recent progress report for Serbia, written by that came out from the EU, which says that Serbia needs to progressively align its foreign and security policy with the EU's common foreign and security policy in the period up to accession. And then I saw yesterday, 2 days ago, in the news, the official announcement that Belgrade is planning to sign in October the free trade agreement with the Eurasian Economic Union. So I would like to ask you, I know we have two of the the tallest presidents in Europe, probably sitting on the stage, but for how long will you be able to stand on two tables, swing from two branches, play two pianos? I don't know which, there's been so many of these metaphors going on for the last few years. So is this a sign that you're worried about the European project, that it will collapse, or that Serbia may eventually not make it?
No. No, I know that you don't like me to speak too much, and I'll take care of your interest, which means that Serbia has been negotiating that trade agreement with Eurasian Alliance for 10, 12 years, and now we're gonna get a very important license to export our cheese to Russia and to Belarus, which is very important for us, and I'm proud to confirm that. On the other hand, we are on our EU path, and it has nothing in common. We are not going to be a part of Eurasian Association. We are going to be a part of EU if someone would like to see us within EU in the future, and that's it. We have good relationship with Russia, we have good relationship with China. Taking a lot of loans from China and from EIB, EBRD and all the others, we also succeeded to cut our public debt from 78% of GDP ratio to 50%. We cut an unemployment rate from 26% to 11.7%. We have a surplus in our budget for the 4th year in a row, which has been the case in only 3 EU member states. I'm not saying that we are living in a paradise, we are still a very poor country, but we are doing better and better, and we'll do everything that we can to improve living standard of our people. And if you ask me whether we're gonna conclude more arrangements, either with Russia, either with China, for the sake of our people, yes, we're gonna do it. And no one can stop us in that. Are we going to say before Russian president that our strategic goal is to be a part of European Union and to fulfill European integration process demands? Yes, I will always do it, and will always say that face to face to Vladimir Putin. And to mention it once again, as many of EU leaders don't do when they meet him. They do it when they leave Moscow or when Putin leave their capitals, but they don't do it tete-a-tete.
Thanks. Nice to have a window into your private chats with Mr. Putin. Your Excellency,
yes,
Zaharia.
I met him so far 15 times, and I'm planning 16, sorry, and I'm planning to meet him very soon again, and I'll inform you about it.
Oh, great. I look forward to the message. Your Excellency, Ms. Zaharieva, last year in Sofia, Bulgaria hosted the first EU-Balkan summit since the 2003 Thessaloniki summit, where the EU promised a clear accession perspective for the Western Balkans countries. What else is Bulgaria specifically doing to help the countries in the region? And what can they learn from your recent accession experience?
Thank you. First of all, I really appreciate always the possibility to talk about the Balkans, Western Balkans, not only because they are our neighbors, but I think that we share on the Balkans, and the previous panel shows how complicated is everything on the Balkans, but we share common history, we share common values, we are friends, neighbors, and Bulgaria it's among the member states, European member states, which really, without any hidden agenda, want to see all 6 Western Balkans countries in, I would say, a near future or a medium-term future, became a part of European family. And it was first presidency of Bulgaria in the beginning of 2018. And one of our main priority was European perspective and connectivity of the Western Balkans countries. And it's not the policy that Bulgaria will continue only 6 months. It's our long strategic goal. And I thank the 2 presidents who are here for receiving me before the presidency, give me opportunity to listen what they think that Europe should do to confirm the European perspective of the Western Balkans countries. Because it's two-side process, it's not one-side play. So European Union should, I think, not organize once per 15 years and meet the leaders of the Balkans with all the European leaders, but consistently support European integration of the Western Balkans. It's a process. It's a difficult one. You mentioned our integration process. It was painful. The reforms sometimes are painful, but trust me, all the reforms that we implement before accession were for good. So we continue after our presidency to be one of the most strongest supporters. We organize meetings, forums, delivering expertise to our friends on the Western Balkans, and of course continue to convince more enlargement skeptical European member states that it's a win-win process. And as the President mentioned, they are in Europe. Actually, some of them are closer to Bulgaria to some of the most enlargement skeptical countries. And they are not somewhere far away. And I fully believe that European projects will be not complete without European Western Balkans became a member state.
Thank you very much. Ms. Brego, the RCC really focuses a lot on regional connectivity, regional relations, and for years this has also been a very important strategic priority of the EU, but there remain so many barriers to the free movement of people and goods. You know, together in the region, the countries have more than 17 million inhabitants, a market the size of the Netherlands, but their economies generate only about the same as much as Slovakia, which has a population a third of the size. So what are some of the most important barriers to regional connectivity, both tariff barriers, non-tariff barriers, and what are the trends? For instance, in Trieste in 2017, there was a big summit during which there was announced there would be a regional youth cooperation council that's set up in Tirana, but yesterday or 2 days ago, some of my friends sent me a message that it's clinically dead, and they're saying that actually the regional cooperation trend is not improving. So what's your perspective on that?
Well, I wouldn't really dare to say that the regional cooperation is not moving ahead. Otherwise, so I'm not going to have a job, and I think that no one's role is to be seated here if that one is going to be true. Well, but let me start not informally to thank the Globsec organizers for offering this chance to one of the most challenging agendas of the region. So I think for all of us to succeed in a near future on our Europeanization or transformation of the region, the regional cooperation is one of the utmost reforms and agendas to be alive and kicking. When I started my tenure in office, I traveled everywhere in the region, and I met President Vučić, I met President Đukanović, and everybody else out of the six. And frankly, we could be hell-bent as an organization to promote and facilitate regional cooperation. But our success is definitely the success of the economies of the region. So said it differently, we can't do anything if rancor, bitterness, conflict, and if negotiations would be tooth and claw. But definitely the situation is different today in the region. You mentioned Trieste, then we had the Sofia summit. Well, I do hope that it's not going to take as long as it took from 1999 when the stabilization association process was introduced to the region, because I think that now we need to step up. And I have to commit myself, and I'll pull no punches on that. I think that we need to move now for both of us, be it Western Balkans and European Union as well, from the geopolitics of nice speeches and approaches to the real geopolitics. Unless Western Balkans will join European Union will never be considered full. We are not only joined together by geography or history, even that history in the Balkans have been quite different in the last 20 years, but
we are jointly moving together, and we have to as partners. And I do trust and believe that if there is something concrete that might happen in the region, is the transformation and reconciliation through the economic development. And on that one, definitely, we have some good figures to show. But, you know, in Balkans is always colorful, so there are a lot of paradoxes living alive in there. So while there are more than 700,000 people employed during the last 5 years, and while there is an increase in trade with exports with EU in the last 10 years, 146%, we can't really give nice figures about the intra-trade among ourselves. But on the other hand, there are some nice figures in the region. So if you'll go and read and then check the public opinion and that of the business, you'll feel that there are a lot of paradoxes. But still, business community are quite positive about the development of the region. 61% of them, they do have trust that the economic situation is on the right way. If you ask the citizens of the Balkans, their perception is kind more gloomy than that of the business community. But then it speaks a lot on the need for the regional cooperation. One figure, for the very first time after 4 years, the citizens of the Western Balkans, 56% of them think that European perspective is something that will work for good in changing their lives. But 74% of them, they are trustful that regional cooperation is going to do it faster and better.
Excellent. Wow. Well, after those statistics, maybe we should check our recently generated ones via the poll. I'm actually quite curious to see, and then we will go to some Slido questions. Okay. Okay. I'm not really sure how we should interpret these statistics, but I will leave it to the presidents. But I will go first to my, yes, here we go. We have a couple of great questions, and I think maybe we should ask Milena Lazarevic. For the presidents, if full EU accession is impossible to achieve midterm due to opposition within the EU, would you accept a partial or reduced membership as a start? Who wants to take that first? As the front runner, nominal front, you should maybe take it first, Mr. President Đukanović.
Sa zadovoljstvom.
With pleasure. Well, I think that we should continue with consistent implementation of the strategy of unification of Europe. I think that without any doubt, we should make credible that all the countries of the Western Balkans have their prospects in the European Union, in the long run at least. Everything else would be a policy that is not good. I don't think that we should create any shortcuts for anybody to become a member of the European Union without meeting the standards and doing the reforms before that. But I would like to warn that the European Union has to take into account the the reform process and geopolitical aspects and adoption of standards. These are all the facets of this issue. So I don't expect anybody to say, you will be a member at certain time, but I expect even less them to tell us you wouldn't be members in the following 5 years, or enlargement is not on the agenda because we have to deal with the consolidation. That is wrong. That is the invitation for everyone who would like to take the Western Balkans on the wrong path and ensuring that the Balkans just actually lose time and tries to deal with certain alternative perspectives, and I don't see any alternative for us. I see that there are penetrations of interests of third parties in the Western Balkans, and that's the attempt of the destruction of European prospects of the Western Balkans, and that is actually the attempt of trying to destroy European system of values and unified Europe. There is no alternative offer. I do not like monopolies. And I would like to hear alternatives, but there are no alternatives. You can't hear proper alternative. We don't have it. And if European Union does not react, and if European Union does not recognize that it is its own interest to continue enlargement of the Western Balkans immediately, then European Union has to be aware that they are taking the responsibility for letting their priority interest zones to the countries that come with the platforms that are opposite to the system of value of European Union.
Question. And since I know you're a man for facts and figures, I wonder if you would also respond to the poll. I would like to add one more mini question that I think Matt asked, but I don't know if it was fully answered, about as we wait for the decision of the member states on North Macedonia and Albania, how that might affect your speed and insistence to reach a deal with Kosovo. Sorry, that was too many questions, but...
Speaking about North Macedonia and Albania, we would always vote for them in favor of their interests. Full stop. And I was one of the very rare guys that supported Edi Rama at that very tough discussion in Sofia summit, which happened a year ago. And it was not an easy day for Edi Rama and Albania. Would always do the same. It would be good news for them, for their citizens. At least they would get some hope, which is good for them. And what is good for them is always good for us. Speaking about these figures, well, it's not a representative sample. I think that there would be, if there would be a representative sample, it would be more % on that never side and less on that 20-25. Our job is to do things, and for us, as you know, the biggest hurdle is Kosovo, although we need to do many things regarding rule of law in particular, because on the economy side, there were no remarks from European Commission on Serbia, and it was all about rule of law, work of our parliament, and I don't know what else. But the most important and the biggest part of European Commission report, and it's not only that, it's there to say all about it, it's what we're going to do with Kosovo and what we're going to do with Pristina regarding our negotiating process. And just to add one word, Mr. Đukanović was speaking about possible alternatives. We don't have an alternative, but I would refer to Melinda's words. I think that we need to stick to each other much stronger than it used to be, that we need to find, that's why I'm always advocating possible arrangement between Belgrade and Pristina. Because if we do so as a block of territories or countries or different nations, we can do many things much better than we do it today. And because there is another factor that it's not up to us and it's not dependent on us, and that's a desire of EU countries. There is nothing that Mr. Đukanović or myself that we can do with the wishes of French or German citizens. And I just want to inform you that I'll speak to Angela Merkel tomorrow morning. If I'm going to inform you about my talks with Putin, I'll do the same with my talks with Merkel. And it's up to them. And before that, we need to do something for our citizens. I think that there are a lot of barriers that we should put down, and that's what we're going to do together with North Macedonia. We're going to do one-stop shop at our border, which is very important, and I met Prime Minister Zaev on that issue, spoke to Pendarovsky on that issue as well, and I think that we'll put that in place within 2 months, and then we're going to do the same with all the other neighbors, and that is going to be a good step forward. We'll try to do absolutely the same with Milo and with Bosnia. That would be very important for us. That will cut our operational costs. That will do good for our economies. And to tell you the truth, we are ready to do in the future customs union. We would equalize all subsidies and incentives that we provide to possible investors, because that would be the way to create unique market And I know that many people would see that as a sort of substitution for European Union. I don't care how do you see it. I think it's something of the biggest importance for our region. We can stay on our EU path. If you want us, take us. If you don't want us, we should take care of ourselves. And if we create a sort of regional economic zone, a block of countries and territories that will fight for themselves, I think that we can have twice bigger or 3 times bigger growth rates in the future. Last year we had 4.5% growth rate. This year it's going to be, I dare to say today, 3.7, 3.8, and we are not satisfied with that. But it's going to be, as you know, in first 5, 6 countries in an entire Europe, which is not bad, which means that in next 10, 15 years we can get closer to EU living standards. But yes, all of us would like to see our countries as part of EU. That's what is Milo's wish, that's what is my wish, but it's not. There are many things that are up to us, but it's not the case that everything's up to us. And we have to be aware of that, and that's it.
Thank you very much. I'd like to open up to some audience questions. I'm sure that there are a number of people with burning questions. Okay. Let's see where the closest mic is. Perhaps it's close to Milan there, and then I will promise that we will kind of go around the room and come this way. So maybe if there's a mic there, can we get one?
Are you sure, Valerie, you want to start with me? Milan Nič, DGAP, Berlin. To 2 presidents. President Đukanović, when I had an honor to host you in Berlin, I asked you the question that you are a president of the country and also a chairman of your party. And there's a congress of your party in the autumn, and I ask you if you will step down as a chairman of the party to be president. I would address the same question to President to Vučić, who is also leader of the party. But let me have a tough question for you. I had one for President Tači. Now, we are in a country where journalists were murdered last year, which triggered huge protests in Slovakia. But the murder was investigated, and those who did it are in prison. Huge protests in your country were initiated by a brutal attack on the opposition politician in November, Borko Stefanović. Some people accused you of instigating violence on the opposition, and the best answer to show that this is not true would be to investigate that attack. Is that attack investigated? And are the perpetrators in prison?
Thank you. We can have the answers first so that we don't get distracted by other questions.
Da, veoma kratko.
At this moment, unfortunately, I cannot give you a specific answer. That is the topic that we will discuss in our party within the following 6 months in the preparation of the Congress. But I would like to confirm the following. We are aware of the good practice of European democracy. We know that. And we want to adopt that practice as fast as possible in every possible segment of our society that will be beneficial for the further democratic prosperity of Montenegro. Our societies do have certain specific features, and those are specific features that we have to take into account. If it weren't for that, we would probably have less disputable parts of our practice, and we would have less suspicion from Europe. We have to know very well what are the specific features of economic and democratic and cultural development of our region. So in that context, we will consider carefully the question that you asked. Unfortunately, although I would really like to, I can't give you a specific answer to that question.
That's the reason why Milo is in power for 30 years. Smartest possible reaction. Your second question. We almost immediately arrested those guys, detained those guys, and there is an ongoing trial. And it happened a year ago. And I was lectured by thousands of people that in Serbia would be the first country in which some journalists would be killed or wounded. And after that, in let's say at least 6 EU countries that happened, and some non-EU countries that happened, but nothing similar happened in Serbia. Anyway, we always punish all those guys that are using violent methods, and we'll carry on with that. Speaking about number of people that were protesting, I need to tell you that I'm very satisfied about the tone of the protests. Even though from time to time those protests turned violent, we haven't arrested almost none of them, unlike it happens in many other European countries. They are free to gather, free to rally, free to express their will, and I'm very proud of that. And speaking about their influence on Serbian public audience, although my numbers and numbers of my party have recently dropped because of that Kosovo discussion in the parliament, and I was seen as a traitor in a way of Serbian national interests, still we have, let's say, 4 to 4.5 times more votes than the others. And it shows that Serbian people are determined to listen and to the real things and to accept the reality, not the dreams of some people. But I do share your worries, and I hope that in all the other countries would be done everything in the same manner that was done regarding that issue in our country. And
Thank you.
Of course we need to do many other things to improve an environment for free journalism and freedom of expression and many other things, and I'm not running away from that issue. We'll have to tackle it in a most serious way. And speaking about that question that you... Okay.
I'm sure you would like to answer maybe another round of questions where we have only 4 minutes left, probably less, so I hate to interrupt you, but I also do not want to have the audience upset with me for not having a chance to answer questions. So we had a question over here, just one more. This is the last one.
Valerie, everybody's amazed with your energy.
Matthew Roach, George C. Marshall Center. The populations of Southeast Europe are forecast to decline by 20% or more by the middle of this century. What does that trend mean for your countries, and what can your governments or the RCC do to address it?
It's the most difficult issue for all of us, and it is really happening and harming all of us. And you wouldn't believe it, that it's even worse in some EU countries from our region, including Croatia and Bulgaria. And it's not easy to tackle that issue. We are doing some measures, but before everything we need to improve our economies, living standards of our people, then to offer something else for that is not easy to find, but European perspective is one of the key solutions for our countries. That's what I can say in a very brief way.
Također, kratak komentar.
Just a brief comment. Reputation of our region is very clear and very famous. We are in an unstable region, and that permanent instability comes from the lack of tolerance towards diversity that exists in the region. And my belief, my deep belief, is that the inspiration to the intolerance and instability comes from our lagging behind in terms of economic development. So if we want to deal with the roots of the problem, we have to start from the economic development. That's why it is important that Alexander said that we have to keep the European prospects very clear. And the second thing is, it is not important when we will become members of the European Union, but it is the most important to use in a smart manner the time before we become members. And this time should be used by European Union, us. And we will do the best if we connect us through infrastructure with Europe. And in that way, we will actually answer the question of China and Russia and the others. But we will also make the European prospects for the region very clear in such a way through infrastructural connections. And the second thing is we have to improve knowledge. That is one of the key deficits, key challenge that we have in our region. But if we are smart, and if we do the policy of Europeanization and we work on these issues in a smart way, I'm sure that the region will overcome its basic weakness, and that in this way we will clearly make the European prospects clear and foreseeable for all the citizens in the region.
The ire of the audience by saying the only thing we have time left for is for 2 more closing statements from the ladies on the panel. It's a rare panel in my patch of the world that I cover that is a 50-50 gender balance, but it doesn't matter if we don't let you speak. So please, Ms. Zaharieva, briefly, if you
Kako mi izgleda ovaj prvi panel?
Sjajno. Ovaj kosovski super je bio.
Borio sam se koliko sam mogao.
Nastavlja se
Pa borio sam se žestoko kao što ste mogli. Nije svađa, borio sam se koliko sam mogao, ali šta vredi, ja sam sam koji nije priznao Kosovo. Jedino pitanje koje imaju svi drugi, ko što ste mogli vidjeti sa strane, to je tvoja veza s Putinom. Je super mi je veza i šta sad hoćete, ali ne vredi, to je, kako kažem, to je njihovo. Ajde sad recite mi vi kad može.
Za Angelu Merkel ćete nam sad reći.
Šta kažete?
Za Angelu sada nam
Pa da, niste mi rekli da ste spremni, recite mi kad ste spremni, ljudi.
Spremni, jesmo, evo izvolite.
Dobro, imali smo težak dan za nama, ali borbeni i zastupali smo interese naše zemlje, čak su mi i Srbi i Grci koji su bili prisutni ovde rekli da sam ih učinio ponosnim. Borio sam se koliko sam mogao, sad vi ćete bolje da procenite kako smo se borili. Meni je zahtevalo mnogo koncentracije, ali čini mi se da sam uspio da pokažem da govorimo istinu i da sam 2 puta vraćao na tačke Briselskog sporazuma Hašima Tačija i mislim da im to nije bilo lako i pokazao da govorim istinu i da Srbija je ozbiljan, odgovoran i pouzdan sagovornik. Sve ostalo, prosto tek sad se završio drugi panel i ključno pitanje naravno za nas Srbe je uvek odnos sa Rusijom, sa Putinom i to im je valjda glavna zamerka. Ovi mogu da urade svi drugi šta hoće, mogu da ne poštuju ni jedan sporazum, ali uvek pitanje, kako ćete vi sa Rusijom? I sad je najveći problem što ćemo mi moći da izvozimo sir. I onda sam na taj način i odgovarao otprilike, ajde, pustite nas više, nemoj da nas zavitlavate sve zajedno. Evo, video sam se s Putinom 16 puta, obavestit ću vas kad se budem video 17. put, a sutra ću da razgovaram i s Angelom Merkel telefonom, pa ću i o tome početi da vas obaveštam, pošto ja vidim da bi svi da vode moj timetable, svi bi da vode moj raspored i da znaju otprilike kad ću gde s kim da se srećem i kad ću gde šta da radim, ali svejedno. Veoma sam zadovoljan što smo imali priliku da razgovaramo, dobro je da smo odvojeno razgovarali sa Eichhorstovom i sa Ashton i sa svima drugima koji su u celoj ovoj priči, a sad me čekaju i američki senator Ron Johnson i Philip Ricker, dakle, tako da...
Šta su vam rekli, Angelina?
Šta su rekli? Pa dobro, oni ljudi traže, oni ljudi žele neko rešenje. Vide da to ide u teškom smeru i vide da ti odnosi nisu jednostavni. Svako bi želeo i ja bih želeo rešenja, ali ne možete mi kažete da želite rešenje, a da uvodite takse protiv Srbije. Kakvo rešenje hoćete, a da nemate pravo na slobodnu trgovinu, da nemate pravo na slobodan protok roba, tako da, kao što rekoh, oslobođen sam nekako svake vrste pritiska i što je veći pritisak, to se lično slobodnije osjećam, ali imam ogromnu odgovornost prema našoj zemlji, prema našem narodu, znajući koliko je važno da sačuvamo mir, koliko je važno da sačuvamo stabilnost i zato se trudim da nikada ne pređemo tu granicu i da umemo da štiteći naše nacionalne interese istovremeno čuvamo stabilnost, mir i ekonomiju. Ne zaboravite i da time završim, posle sam spreman da odgovaram na vaše pitanja čim završim ove sastanke sa Rickerom i Johnsonom. Dakle, ne zaboravite ako uporedite od 90. godine period Miloševićeve vladavine, već u prvih nekoliko godina imali ste više sukoba, ratova, imali ste ekonomsku kataklizmu. Pri tome ne govorim ni da je za sve kriv, niti bilo šta slično. U vreme dosovske vladavine od 2000. iako je sve krenulo kao Kosovo demokratsko pitanje, ekonomski prosperitet, 2005. je krenula ekonomska kataklizma od 2006. u stvari, naročito od 2008. Dakle, sa otpuštanjem preko 500 i 600 hiljada ljudi, razaranjem kompletnog privatnog sektora, uništavanjem fabrika, privatizacijom kriminalnom i istovremeno gubitkom i Crne Gore i gubitkom Kosova. Do danas, čak ni ono što su oni gubili, mi nismo dali da bude izgubljeno, nego smo vratili u priču i istovremeno smo oporavili ekonomiju, oporavljamo je svaki dan i kao što ste videli danas, bili su samo reči pohvale na račun srpske ekonomije, ni jedne reči koja bi govorila drugačije. Tako da moramo da čuvamo mir, mir je mnogo važan za nas, jer za sve drugo što se ekonomije tiče nemam nikakve strahove.
Sa Merkelovom, evo sad su objavili da ste na panelu rekli da...
Pa sutra ću razgovaram s njom telefonom. To je ono što mogu da kažem. Pa šta može da bude tema Kosova, naravno. Razgovarat ćemo mi, pitaću je ja i za dodatnu podršku i pomoć za privlačenje nemačkih investitora i za evropski put Srbije, dakle, ali šta će biti, naravno će biti Pariz i da će biti Kosovo i Metohija, to je to. Srećan rad, aj zdravo.